Am I the only one that didn't know a single photo could have the power to completely shift the way an entire country thinks about something as complicated and controversial as immigration? I mean, we scroll past hundreds of images every day, some shocking, some heartwarming, most forgettable. But every once in a while, there's an image that stops you in your tracks. It makes you pause, makes you question what you thought you knew, and sometimes, it even changes the conversation for everyone. That's exactly what happened to me recently, and honestly, I'm still trying to process it. I just saw an image that made me rethink everything I thought I understood about the immigration debate in the United States. It wasn't just another headline or a statistic buried in a news article. It was a single, raw moment captured on camera. A moment that seemed to cut through all the noise, all the arguments, and all the politics. Suddenly, the issue wasn't just about laws or borders or numbers. It was about people with real fears, real hopes, and real pain. Let me show you why this image has the entire country talking. For years, the conversation around deportation in the US has been dominated by talk of security, law and order, and the need to protect our borders. Politicians on both sides have argued about what's right, what's fair, and what's necessary. We've seen heated debates on TV, passionate protests in the streets, and endless headlines about policy changes and enforcement crackdowns. But through it all, the focus has mostly been on abstract ideas, on the big picture, not the individual stories, protecting our borders. That's the phrase we hear over and over again. It's become almost a mantra, repeated by politicians, news anchors, and everyday people alike. But in July 2025, something happened that made everyone stop and look a little closer. A single photo went viral, spreading across social media and news outlets like wildfire. And suddenly, everything felt different. The conversation shifted almost overnight from abstract policy to the very real human cost of those policies. The image itself is simple, but its impact is anything but. It shows a deportation officer holding the hand of a crying child during a routine operation. There's no shouting, no chaos, no dramatic confrontation, just a small kid, terrified and alone, clutching the hand of a uniformed officer. The officer's face is unreadable, maybe stoic, maybe conflicted. The child's face, though, is pure emotion. Fear, confusion, heartbreak. In that moment, all the arguments about legality and security seem to fade into the background. What's left is a raw, undeniable truth. Behind every policy, there are real people whose lives are being changed forever. No shouting, no chaos, just a small kid, terrified and alone. It's a scene that could have happened anywhere, at any time, but this time, someone was there to capture it. And that made all the difference. The photo spread across the internet in hours, shared by millions of people who saw in it something they couldn't ignore. It was as if the entire country was suddenly seeing the human side of deportation for the very first time. Social media exploded. Hashtags like #deportationreality and #eyeswideopen were everywhere. People who had never paid much attention to immigration policy before were suddenly talking about it, sharing their own stories and asking hard questions. News outlets ran special reports, talk shows devoted entire episodes to the photo, and politicians were forced to respond. It was as if a collective light bulb had gone off, illuminating a side of the issue that had been hidden in plain sight. Even some of the most hardline voices in the immigration debate had to stop and think. For years, the conversation had been framed in terms of us versus them, security versus chaos, order versus disorder. But this photo made it impossible to ignore the fact that, at the heart of it all, are people. Children, parents, families, caught in the crossfire of policies and politics. Even some hardliners had to stop and think. One human rights advocate, who had spent years fighting for more compassionate immigration policies, said, "That image broke me." It was a sentiment echoed by thousands of others, from activists to ordinary citizens. Suddenly, the debate wasn't just about what was legal or necessary, it was about what was right, what was humane, and what kind of country we want to be. The image forced people to confront the human cost of policy decisions that are often debated from a distance, in offices and conference rooms far removed from the reality on the ground. It was a stark reminder that every statistic, every policy, every headline represents real lives, lives that are forever changed by the choices we make as a society. The conversation shifted. People started seeing migrants and families, not just numbers or threats. For the first time in a long time, the focus was on the people at the center of the story, not just the politics. News stories began to highlight the experiences of families separated at the border, the struggles of children caught in the system, and the emotional toll of deportation on entire communities. Suddenly, it wasn't about politics, it was about real lives, real pain. The photo became a symbol, a rallying cry for those who believe that compassion should be at the heart of our immigration policies. It sparked conversations in homes, schools, workplaces, and places of worship. People who had never thought much about immigration before were now asking themselves, what would I do if that were my child? How would I feel if my family were in that situation? Polls showed most Americans rejecting mass deportation for the first time. The numbers were clear. Public opinion was shifting, and fast. For years, support for tough immigration enforcement had been strong, but now, more and more people were questioning whether the cost was too high. Was it worth it to tear families apart in the name of security? Was there a better way? One tweet summed it up perfectly: a picture is worth 1,000 policies. It was a reminder that no matter how many laws we pass or debates we have, sometimes it takes a single image to make us see things differently. The photo became a touchstone, a reference point in the national conversation about immigration. It was cited in speeches, shared in classrooms, and discussed in community meetings across the country. So, next time you see a headline about immigration, remember, behind every policy, there's a story, a family, a dream. It's easy to get caught up in the politics, the arguments, the endless back and forth, but at the end of the day, these are real people, with hopes and fears just like ours. They're not just numbers on a page or faces in a crowd, they're mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters, each with their own story to tell. The photo that went viral in July 2025 didn't just change the conversation, it changed hearts and minds. It reminded us that empathy is a powerful force, one that can cut through even the most entrenched debates. It showed us that when we take the time to really see each other, to look beyond the headlines and the talking points, we can find common ground. We can start to build a future that's not just safer but kinder and more just. That photo, it didn't just go viral. It opened a nation's eyes. It forced us to confront the reality of our choices, to ask ourselves what kind of country we want to be. And maybe, just maybe, it started us down a path toward a more compassionate, more humane approach to immigration, one where every person, every family, and every dream matters.